it is important to make sure that you craft and curate an aesthetic that that feels unique. For me, a shoe that makes it out there, whether it's to market or just to the runway, that for me is a win. My measurement of success wasn't like, oh, how many shoes can I bring to market? For me, it was like, how many designs can I make so that like they at least live out there in the world in a tangible form.
All right, fellas, welcome to another episode of Hype Hustle Heart, where we talk about the culture, the business, and the people that drive it. Today, we have one of those people joining us, Cesar Idrobo. He is a footwear design consultant, a product developer, and a sample maker. He's worked with many brands, including Yeezy, Adidas, Nike, Puma, Toms, Skims, eBay, and more, just to name a few. Cesar, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you being on this episode of Hype Hustle Hard. So I mentioned some of the brands that you've worked with, and obviously you're a designer. Maybe just for some of the folks that are watching, give us an idea of some of those notable shoes or silhouettes that you worked on in the past.
Yeah, so one of them is in the market right now, is the 500 tactical boot that came out last year. And then I have a lot of my work has been only like special projects. So they have been only a part of the runway shows. And I've had some of my work on music videos, which I was a part of that team as well. One of them being the oversized Yeezy slide that was very popular in 2019. So yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, so that's super dope, super dope. We're definitely going to get into talking about the tactical boot in a second. But we wanted to get a little bit more of your background story. Maybe you could help us out. Tell us a little bit about your journey in the industry. You know, how did you start? And how did you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I just started with my education. I wanted to make sure that I have the proper training for, to have a successful career. So I decided to pursue a master's degree in footwear design and footwear making. So I started with that. I started with having that proper hands-on learning experience that I needed to be successful in this career. So I started with that, with my education. And then right after I completed my master's degree in footwear design, then I decided to do an apprenticeship with a master shoemaker that was very rewarding and a very key component to my success.
Can you tell us a little
And
bit
then right
about that?
after that, I had
Can
yeah.
you tell us, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you tell us about that person that you did the apprenticeship
No,
with? Because I believe I saw you start sharing some of his content. Is it Marcel? Marcel? I know that, I started watching some of his
Marcel Marchand,
Marcel
yeah.
Marchand. Yeah, I started watching some of his content after I seen you sharing it. And I know for me, like I get some of that ASMR feeling when I see him cut the leather and like tack the shoes together. Like that stuff is so interesting to me. Talk to us a little bit about that apprenticeship with him.
Yeah, so that apprenticeship was for me more of like an extension or like, further learning experience for me from my master's degree, because he was the one who taught the footwear courses in my graduate program. So then I had the experience to keep learning from him in the apprenticeship. And it was very, very like good foundation for, for breaking into the industry, because you need the proper, footwear training for you to understand how shoes are made. And then once you know that, then you can start translating designs into a product, like very well. Because yes, a lot of people in the industry right now do that, but they have a lot of shortcomings here and there, a lot of back and forth with with the factories or the developers. So for me, it's like an easier, working with me is like an easier experience. Like, like I add more grease to the wheel, so it's a smooth experience with me translating design into product.
Got it. Got it. So you finish your apprenticeship with him. What was the next step after that in your journey?
After that, I had the opportunity to join Adidas as a footwear developer for the Yeezy business unit in the very early days of of the department within the Adidas infrastructure, or like with the early days of the partnership as well. So I have the opportunity to join. When I joined the team at Adidas, I was able to, see how things were operating from a corporate, from the Adidas side, and it was a very small team back in the day. There was only marketing, design, and development, and I had the opportunity to, just be part of that and see how things were working, or like how things were organized. And in that position, that's where I met Steven Smith, who a year later will come to be a key role in my career. So it's just, one of those things, about life, how things work, that even though that position ended for me 2 months into the job, they restructured the business unit and my position was eliminated. But that was the moment that I needed to meet Steven, and then a year later he brought me on board to Yeezy.
This is super dope, Caesar. I'm really curious about the Yeezy brand, and you working with them. You worked there about 5 years with Yeezy. Can you dive into the experience a little bit and tell us what that was like overall?
Yeah, it was a really liberating experience. It was really unique experience that I'm grateful to be a part of, because I don't think there'll ever be anything like it.
Mhm.
And it was very unique in the sense of, like, how things were done, the operations, and it was more of like um, there's a lot of similarities between, like, I don't know, running GC and running like an art studio,
Mhm.
because for us, art and visuals and aesthetics were a high priority. Like, it was what differentiated the brand from the rest. So there was a lot of emphasis on aesthetics, and
Oh,
which is rare now in the industry, because I think a lot of the industry, they're either trying now in the industry they're either trying to rely on what was done before, like, oh, let's retro a style from the 80s, from the 90s, and call it a day,
right.
um, or they are relying on already existing components, working with already existing ingredients, and which there is a time for that, working with already existing components, but it is important to make sure that you craft and curate an aesthetic that feels unique.
Dope, bro. Super dope.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense that it definitely sets the Yeezy brand apart. I agree with that.
What's up, Caesar? Yeah, I got a question for you, bro.
Hey.
Like me being a big sneakerhead, me as a consumer, I can tell you what product is my favorite, like which ones are my favorite design, which is my favorite shoes. But you're behind the scenes. What was your favorite, I guess, project or footwear product to work on?
They all the projects were special in on their own. uh, every process to get to the final product was different for each style. Some of them happened quicker than others, and then some of them, uh, as as for example, in the 500 tactical boot,
Right.
in that exploration process, from that process we diverge into, I want to say, into one style, into another style from that process
Right.
of creation. We ended up coming out with two, but
Got you.
only one made it to market. But there was a variation that was really strong, and that it deserved to be out there, but it's just timing and everything just didn't work out. So that's why the 500 tactical was
Got
like
you.
an
Yep.
easy win. But yeah.
So you obviously, you know, the brands work on these designs. A lot of them end up being prototypes and they end up kind of staying on the cutting room floor, so be it, or they don't end up being released. Is there a project or a design that you really loved or that you worked on that never got released? What was that project like, and what can you tell us about that particular shoe or design?
There were a couple styles, designs that made it to the runway, and that was for season 8, for season 9. There were a couple styles that that were developed all the way to a pre-developed, like pre-production level. So which is like very high details.
So that's practically they were on the verge of release, but didn't make it to that final step.
Right. Yeah. But they made it to this. For me, a shoe that makes it out there, whether it's to market or just to the runway, that for me is a win. So, and for me, like my measurement of success wasn't like, oh, how many shoes can I bring to market? For me, it was like, how many designs can I make so that like they at least live out there in the world in a tangible form. Like
Yeah, that makes
they're no longer ideas. So for me, if I could make the prototype and and then bring it to Adidas for development, that for me was success. But yeah, of course, I wanted them to like go further and go to market. At least the 500 tactical boot made it out there. But yes, there were a couple styles from there was a one season 9. It was like a 5-finger shoe. That one, it would have been interesting to think about how we could have make it into a manufacturable product. But yeah, that was one of the styles that I worked with a designer that it only took us 4 hours to make that shoe, and that was it. Next thing we know, it's on the it made it into the runway, and yeah, we're very happy with the outcome.
super dope. I guess sometimes as a creator, right? We create in the production realm, and yeah, sometimes we just like to create it and kind of see it come to fruition for ourselves. And I think that's really where your passion kind of shows through, right? Because you're not doing it for the market or for the masses. You're starting to do it because it's something that you want to put out there in the world, and you want to let the world kind of take it in for themselves, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet, man. So let me kind of change gears slightly, and then we'll make our way back talking about the tactical boot. But obviously the name of our show is Hype Hustle Heart, and it talks specifically about hype being the culture, hustle being the business, and heart being the people that drive it, right? So for us, each individual success story that we come across within the culture has had its own unique mix of hype, which is that excitement for the culture, the hustle, which is representing that sacrifice and the hard work that you've had to put in, and the heart that represents your personal passions for design, for creation, and for what or who is important to you in life. How would you say hype, hustle, and heart have each driven you to where you are today?
Definitely, I think I would translate hype, hustle, and heart into, I would say, an idea, desire, and faith. When you combine those, like the idea of becoming I knew that I wanted to be something in this industry, and that I had, the faith or the belief that I was going to do it. And then after that, it was, like, okay, what do I need to do to get there? So those, like, translating hype, hustle, and heart into like my realm, it would be the idea of becoming something, the belief that I was going to do it, and the faith that I was going to accomplish something. So yeah, I mean, and this goes for anyone in the creative industry, and this advice that I give to students when I mentor students is that you need to align on three things to be, or to have high chances of success. Think about what you're good at, think about what you like and you enjoy doing, and then think also about your connections, who is next to you, and then start aligning those three things so that you can have high chances of success in your career.
I think
So
those
yeah.
are interesting points
Mhm.
that you bring up, and it's great to hear that you communicate that in your mentoring, because you mentioned one thing specifically when you talk about faith, right? And that's about having faith in yourself and having faith in the ideas that you have. Because at the end of the day, if you don't believe in yourself first, nobody else is going to jump on board, right?
Right on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, bro. I appreciate you breaking that down for us, and I think the way that you break down those three tiers and communicate that to other folks that you're mentoring, all the way. So I think I'm going to jump into a little bit now, talking back about your creative process, right? Because we are talking about, how you got to this stage. And one thing that I often see is I'll see you share stories, right? And I think I've sometimes even like shared a couple because I feel like I have an idea of what you're doing, right? And for example, in our realm, right, we work in production, and a lot of times we're creating like bespoke packaging, or we're doing this huge build or whatever the case is. And sometimes I'll just be out and about in my regular day to day. And, somebody will be like, why are you looking so closely at that molding in the corner and flicking the light on and off, right? Because I'm trying to see the shadow and how it's coming. Like crazy things where sometimes maybe a non-creative would look at you like, what the heck are you doing, right? Yeah. But I mean, is that something that you're doing when you share these different textures? Sometimes you see things on the street, somebody's wearing something, these funky colors. Is that part of your process? What can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I am very. I think during my time at Yeezy, there were a lot of like senses, I would say, that like were awakened, and there were a lot of like things that I now notice, but that I didn't notice before. So now I'm seeing, now I'm letting people like be, and I'm holding people and their thoughts at a higher, value, because I think, not everyone is like fashion conscious. So if you made those decisions when you were getting dressed, and you're looking at a stranger in the street, and like, my assumption is that like not everyone is fashion conscious, however, everyone doesn't want to look bad. So for me to see random person in the street making those decisions, it tells me something, and it tells me like, oh, maybe they weren't intentional, maybe they were, but it doesn't matter, because like, their choices are their choices, and I can see what they're wearing. So I capture interesting choices that people make, in terms of like, what they wear, how they mix um, pieces of clothing, how they mix colors, how they mix textures, and sometimes like it's really bad that it's good. And
It's so
there
bad
is
that it's
like
good. I like that.
all this inspiration. Yeah. um, and sometimes this inspiration needs translation. This is just like raw ideas that need, okay, let me like shape this here, shape this there, and change this, change that. So they need sharpening, they need refinement, but the rough idea is out there. The inspiration is out there in the world. We just have to, like, do our due diligence as creators and designers to make them better.
Yeah, that's great. I'd have to agree, right? You got to go out into the world with that objective perspective. And I think more so what we're talking about is having that gift of hyper observance, right? Where you are looking at the details around you and in the world differently than what other folks are, because you're already thinking about taking it to that next level. And as you said, refine it to what ends up being that final product that you come out with. And so yeah, I definitely wanted to ask you about what that process was for you, because I find that to be extremely interesting and definitely a method for folks to take note of and implement in their own.
Yeah, and this process looks different for everyone, and that's why I share it, because I don't mind sharing inspiration, because what you take out of it is going to be different from what I take out of it. So that's why I don't mind, like, ideas. I don't mind sharing, because I know that you're going to do something different with it. I'm going to do something different, but all we need is the idea to, like, kickstart that process.
I think you bring up an extremely valid point with regards to sharing ideas and putting them out in the world. I know that, we do that often. And, sometimes there might be instances, and I'm sure this has happened to you, where you might see something that you put out in the world and then maybe somebody else copied a version of that or something of that nature. But what I tell folks, and when we're talking to workshops and to students and things of that nature, is you can't be afraid to put those ideas out in the world, and you can't be nervous about somebody stealing what your ideas are. Because at the end of the day, if you're a creator, you really shouldn't have a limit to when you start coming up with ideas. And if anything, what I like to tell folks is put your ideas out there, and if somebody takes them, then you need to take that as a compliment. As to what you're doing. And it also forces you as a creator to come up with new ideas, right? Sometimes people have this, they might have a range of ideas or concepts that they're coming up with, and then they don't want to really put them out there because they're trying to keep them for themselves. But, I'm more of the perspective of, like, put them out because it's going to force you to come up with something even more so and more creative on top of that, right? So I think the concept of sharing ideas, we're definitely in agreement with you on that one for sure.
So what's up once again, Cesar? So one product that you said that you worked on hit the market. I believe it was the Yeezy 500 High Tactical Boot. What sort of inspiration did you take from to basically, put into this design and help put your part into this design?
It was more of like an idea that was executed upon.
Gotcha.
And then that execution yielded or, like, let's say, trigger other iterations of that idea. But then from the beginning, we knew that first idea that we put together, it was gonna be it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but there was no inspiration. This one was very unconventional, the way it came together. This design.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, so I know you got the lighter colorway coming out this year. I guess there's not a drop date on that yet, right?
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah, but you know what? I was a few lives ago, I was in the Air Force. I was in the military, and seeing a boot like this, I really love it. I mean, the silhouette of it, it looks, so comfortable. It looks like it really hugs your ankle. And I think, in my basic training days, we would have killed for something similar to this. So kudos to you and the design, man. It's super fire.
Thank you.
So Cesar, what are you currently working on, if you don't mind us asking? And what would you like hope to work on in the near future?
Yeah, so right now I am doing consulting for Puma. But that's as far as I can go.
Yeah.
And then in terms of what I would like to do this year or like in the near future, I want to start re-energizing the industry by doing collaborations.
Okay.
I think brands, there are a lot of brands with a lot of potential. They just haven't tapped into it yet, or they haven't been exposed to what they could become.
Right.
So I think these are conversations that we need to have, spaces that we need to have to explore. Okay, what is the next frontier? What is the next chapter for your brand? So that's I'm starting to work towards something like it. Um, Hopefully, it turns into something, but it's all in early conversations right now.
Yeah.
But yes, I want to do that with like as many brands that are open to having working on these kind of projects and reimagining. Okay, what is the future of your brand?
Dope. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. Like makes me think of like New Balance, how they're kind of revamped themselves with collabs like Joe Freshgood and things like that. That's really helped them transcend and move forward with the culture. I think there are a lot of brands that could need that help. No, man, sounds good.
Caesar, do you ever see
Yes.
yourself down the road, you know, on your own? Do you ever see yourself, having your own footwear brand?
I yes. So I am working towards something along those lines.
Yeah.
Early conversations right now, but yes, I do see myself putting my stamp on products. I think it's yes, footwear makes sense for me, but I think my bachelor's is in industrial design, so I have like this product mindset. So I could see myself putting my name on products.
Yeah.
Not necessarily I want to be not necessarily I want to become a lifestyle brand. Just products that make sense and but they have like a artistic twist to it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that become more of like the core pieces that happen to be functional. I
Gotcha.
think that would be something very interesting to explore. Yeah.
That's dope to hear, man. Do you have a date on that, or is that just when it happens, when it happens?
For the footwear with my name on, um, hopefully we can see something this year. Um, we'll see. I'm exploring ways to go about it because if I don't mind collaborating with someone to do it because I have a lot of friends in the fashion industry, like around the world. So like I'm exploring, maybe a potential collaboration or something to begin, or maybe I go solo for the first drop and then do something for the next one. So we'll see. I'm exploring and still like brainstorming what that first drop might look like.
Super dope. Yeah, that's a very exciting hot take here on Hype Hustle Heart. Cesar Idrobo, looking to put his own mark in the near future. We'll definitely keep our eyes open and be out on the lookout for that. Um, all right, dope. So I think we wanted to jump into I guess what I wanted to try to put out there is so Cesar, for those that don't know you, what's your background, bro? Where are you from originally?
I'm from Colombia, but I have been in the States since 2007.
Sweet. So, anybody that watches us knows that, I come from the same background. So I definitely wanted to reach out to Cesar and talk to him. And we have a lot of sneakerheads that follow us and that watch the show that are interested in knowing more about you as well. So voy a hacer el cambio acá un poquito. Vamos a
Ok,
hacerlo en
sí,
español. Pero lo que sí quería
listo.
preguntarle a César, y otra vez, gracias por estar acá. Yo sé que hay mucha gente en Colombia que van a ver esto y están muy interesados en la carrera suya, no solamente lo que has hecho, sino lo que va a venir en el futuro. Entonces, lo que diría es,
Gracias. Ujú.
claro que sí, para esos sneakerheads colombianos que lo siguen a usted, Quería saber si nos podía dar un compromiso para acompañarnos en alguna fecha que lo determinaríamos ya después para hacer una grabación live de Hype Hustle Heart con vos en Colombia, donde mucha de la gente que lo sigue lo puedan conocer en persona. ¿Qué dices, hermano?
Hagámoslo
Excelente, ahí para que
de
escuchen
una.
la gente de Hype Hustle Heart, los de Sneaker Culture Colombia, ya tenemos el compromiso de César que lo vamos a llevar eventualmente a Colombia y vamos a hacer una junta donde todos lo puedan conocer.
Qué chévere, no, sí, hagámoslo porque es bueno que la gente vea lo que es posible.
Total, y para que nuestra gente también vea que usted empezó desde allá y vean esa trayectoria y el génesis de la carrera suya y donde has llegado y donde vas a llegar, porque todavía yo creo que le falta bastante.
Sí, hay campo.
Bastante cool, bro. I definitely appreciate that. And I think we all appreciate you again being on the show. We appreciate your time. And yeah, bro, we look forward to taking you out and being out there in Colombia at some point in the future and meeting some of those folks and just showing more of who you are, what you've done and what you're gonna do in the future. So from myself and from the rest of the crew here, Cesar, we really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Hype
Ah,
Hustle Heart.
thank you guys. Yeah, thank you.